Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. As always, I'm having un poquito vino on Thursday. I'm running out of it. I know. Shit is going crazy over here. Wine on Thursday. Anyway, I recorded the video yesterday and I was gonna post it, but I changed my mind. I think I feel like I have to reel back in a little bit because the stuff that I'm posting might be a little bit ahead of time. So I'm reeling back in. And in this video, I want to talk about none other than the purpose of evil. And I want to talk about this from consciousness perspective, like kind of neutral before it gets anthropomorphized, because mind always makes something out of this. I don't know if you ever caught the mind in action, but if you do have that perspective where you catch the mind in action and you actually see what just happened when a thought arises, you will see that what it was is the energy surge through a certain pattern. And that pattern was an image. A thought is actually an image, right? Even though you may not see things visually, but if you really look at thought, it's the imaging process. Again, I don't know if I could I'm not describing it well enough for you to see it, but you just like try to see what the thought is. And there are beautiful thoughts. They're all made up, by the way. But there are beautiful thoughts. The thoughts that are, coherent based, mythology based, story based. There are beautiful thoughts. And there are these dualistic thoughts, which is a thought, but it's already insecure because it has the dual opposite of it. It's this type of dualistic thoughts, right? And in that thought is trying to survive, which is the craziest thing ever. And the only way it can survive, it can keep on retrieving energy. And the way it retrieves that energy, that idea, that ideology, is if it's being fueled by it. And that usually it's just like, it's seeking for like some sort of reward about that idea. And the reward may be like somebody is joining that. So like, oh yeah, things are like that, so there's a little bit more energy there for that idea, for that thought. Or, oh, you get the reward because there's some sort of like a sexual getting off on it, right? Like there's that type of false light kind of thing that happens, that thought is being reinforced. Okay? And so if we really talk about like entities, that's what it is. It's every thought, it's a type of kind of entity. None of them are real. They're real and they're all made up. Okay? So, also, if you have not seen it yet, check it out, like that biocomputing. I think you may like it. It is AI combination with biology and neurons and the AI and what is possible to do. And they made it to play Doom pretty well. And it was just a clump of neuronal cells attached on the chip and sending the signals, receiving the signals, and they're playing Doom. And that's what you have, like the AI function, and then you have the nature function, the biology function. And it's essentially what we are anyway. But that's the thing. You want the biology to be connected with AI or technology. I said that before. It's important. If you want to survive in this technology thriving world, you have to incorporate biology in the technology. Like that completely like naked robot with no biology there. It's um it's very limited. It doesn't it will never have something there that biology can provide, and that neuron experiment shows that, because it has that type of capacity or capability to tap in to that quantum field and impose their intention on the reality. What do I mean by that? So this idea that everything is deterministic and biology is just goes through the stimulus and response mechanism, or stimulus and response mechanism is real, and that's the robotic mechanical side of it. However, it is not blind. The watchmaker is not blind, to contradict Sir Richard Dawkins. The watchman, it is not blind. The way it works is that intention. You understand the intention and this type of intention that I'm talking about? The true intention. You know, we talked about the attention, awareness, concentration, and expansion. Those are four fundamental faculties of consciousness that must be engaged in, you know, alchemizing that old time space into the new time space, ether and the new time space, right? And then when that is done, when you have that quality time space, you want to create something out of it, and you need an intention there. Okay? So intention is something very special. It is like this. Intention, to get it acknowledged or rewarded or listened to by the way things are, by the way things move, it needs energy. Okay? If the intention does not have energy, that vote that you're casting upon the entire field of consciousness to say like, hey, I want to have a bigger beak because I cannot reach these ants in this kind of hole or whatever, right? I need the bigger beak. And so you cast that vote to get that bigger beak. Now that intention is recorded in this morphogenetic field, and then your offspring is going to have a bigger beak. Right? It's been listened to. And that's how evolution is actually being driven. So the Darwinistic evolution and Lamarck's evolution, Lamarck's or Lamarck's? I think it's Lamarck. 1 second. There you go. That's actually Lamarck. So Darwinism and Lamarckism, they both are right. They actually work synergistically. Okay? So you have to consider this automatic nature of consciousness, the matrix side, and you also have to consider the consciousness side, which is holistic side. And you have to sort of look at the world from these seemingly polar opposite perspectives, and then you'll get to understand like, oh, that is how it works. Okay? So now they both are right, but in that limited field of, investigation. Then there's this materialistic view, and then there's this holistic view. And so you have to have go matter, matrix, holistic view, right? You need to have both to get the real picture. Otherwise, you're lost in one or the other. Okay? And so you either, people who are lost in the holistics, hippies. People who are lost into matrix, materialism, technocrats, and you see what I'm trying to say? Like, these are two extremes. But there's something in between that is the accurate view of reality. Okay, so I know that, like, to hold this in perspective, it is not, you need to hold something that cannot be reconciliated, but something inside of you is capable of doing that, and that thing is deep perspective. Otherwise, if you just move a little bit in a more shallower perspective, then you're going to be either materialistic or holistic, and then it's kind of lost. Because then if you're on the materialistic, then you would ask questions like, well, but how does this, kind of work? This doesn't make any sense, like, right? But if purely in the holistics, you would be like, oh, all of that material is bullshit. That's not even important. This is only important. Like, that material stuff, it doesn't matter. But neither of it is true. Both of these worlds are true. They work synergistically. Okay. It depends on a point of observer. But if you can take a deeper view, then you can see that the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, they're actually not enemies. That they are living synergistically and together, and that is where the real balance of life lies. Okay. Now, that brings me to something. Let me just put some energy inside of you. There you go. I'll charge you. Now, I want to. Anyway, I just want to just recap real quick and just say what I just said in a summary. Is the intention that consciousness casts upon when it has the energy, that what do you call it, desire, but fulfill desire, wanting to reach something and seeking that out, and then having that thought of like trying to get something that you cannot physically have. You need to move into that imagination world and cast that result, because it's not possible here. At this particular permutation of reality is not possible. So you've got to go into this other, the higher mind, as people call it. Higher mind is not the ultimate mind, by the way, but it is part of you, the way it works. So you cast that vote. That's what I want. And the vote is casted, and now it is in the field being delivered to you, because that strong desire that you had has been fulfilled, at least in your imagination. Okay? Now, but as you can see in this case, it takes time. That bird that desired a longer beak is going to die without ever having a longer beak. But his offspring is going to have a longer beak. Sorry. But, sad story, but that's how it is. So in a way, I think there's some things that are going to be this way, where your sacrifice that you made in life, you will not reap the rewards, but only your children, only your offspring will. There's some things that are like that, but the rest of it you can still create while you're here, but perhaps not this big and big scale changes that you've made that takes time, and it's just beyond the time of your body lifespan, let's just say it this way. But in a way, it is the same birdiness that is now enjoying the longer beak from that higher perspective, reaching all of these different worms and ants and whatnot with that longer beak. So that's how evolution actually works. It's not dumb. It is combination of this stimulus response and conscious intent. Okay? And that's the beauty of this biocomputing idea, because it does have that type of intent. It can affect the reality. AI cannot affect the reality. The intent must come from consciousness. Right? Intent must come from from soul, from consciousness. You see? Not the mind. Now, so let's talk about the energy that is necessary for that to become so in the template that later becomes reality in the physical world. This is why it is so unexpected and weird, and you don't know, because it's so difficult. If it's determinism, then it's easy to determine of what's going to happen, but it will never be so. And if it is just holistic, and anybody who just imagines this particular thing and that's what's going to happen because they put a lot of energy there, that's also would be a determinism. But it's not like that. It's quite messy in the sense that the mind system is blind. It basically looks at it and says like, okay, do I get an energy? Oh, I got an energy. And do I get the vote? I got the vote. Okay, there's a vote and there's an energy. I'm casting this as to be the case. Now, mind does not look into this and say, is this a, originated from source, or is this energy was created fictitiously through like through pleasure and not joy, right? Mind does not care. It has the energy, and it just goes out and it just creates this. See, this is why the mind is kind of blind. Consciousness is not blind. It's super intelligent, but mind will always be blind. And when I say mind, that's like almost everything. It's only this consciousness part that is capable of intelligent decisions. The rest of it is not. Even the people who are manifesting things, where that decision came from, right? And it would be, if you look deeper, and then you'll find that a lot of people, decision did not come from their original soul desire. That's not what they really wanted to do. It was just externally stimulate, and now they're using imagination to get that. Are they like awakened? Are they online? No, they're not. Just because you can go into an imagination, just because you can, astral projector or have an out-of-body experience, does not mean that you are no longer an NPC. It does not mean that. It is very important according to which energy you're functioning on. Like, if you're seeking this type of vanity, that higher mind, which is that astral reality, and your capacity to explore that, does not make you into somebody that is real. You can still be completely run by the entities, which are thoughts, which are just makes you do things. And that's what they do. They implant yourself. So there's that blind mind, which is just, hey, this thought has a lot of energy. We have to make this thought real, right? But now, so the game becomes not about trusting that the mind is going to do the right thing, mind is going to do what the mind does. This is why there's no such thing that you trust people. You trust what the mind people the excuse me, you trust what the mind of the people will do. Trust that. Now, exactly what is programmed to be done, that's something that you have to investigate and look into and understand that. But once you see the programming, once you see the patterning, once you see how it all works, trust that patterning and the programming of the mind. That's what will happen. You see? This is why, like, when you sometimes you come out genuinely from the heart, from the soul, and being genuine, and you have your ass handed to you, it is because you anthropomorphize something that does not have that type of capacity. You see? And that is why it is there. Because mind is blind. It needs a light to see. Just like these neuronal cells, do they have eyes? No. How do they see it? They see through energy, through vibration. Light is a reward to them. High coherence is like a sugar to them, sweet. Low coherence is punishment. They try to avoid the low coherence, go for the high coherence. So they move towards the light. But in this case, the light is coherence. And that's exactly how they make them to make the decisions for that video game. And so you have a clump of cells playing the Doom better than some of the humans. So what is actually happening when a human is playing the video game? If clump of cells is enough to play the video game. So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that that's all it is to a human, but even though some gamers are just a clump of cells, but you see what I'm trying to say. So it seeks the light, avoids the darkness, incoherence or entropy, and negentropy or coherence. It just navigates life like that. Okay. It also has this capacity to imagine and impact the reality, which is now it is outside. There's that intelligence within the cell that is not mechanical. You see? And it can cast an intent that is not robotically derived. I hope I'm making things clear here. The intent that is intelligently derived, not intellectually derived. Intelligently meaning that it recognizes that this particular laws and features and rule sets of the game is the way it is, and within this rule set of the game, things are just going to be the way it is, but it casts a vote to change the entire freaking game, to change the rule sets of the game. That's what it has the capacity. Now, deterministic approach and this is just purely intellectual approach does not have that capacity. Intelligence, I want to say that intelligence and biology is linked, and technology and intellect is linked. And this is my vote is being casted that in order not to have that disaster of having like a purely intellectual approach that has no warmness, but just pure this B66 technocratic world, you have to integrate it. You have to have integrating biology with technology. And if you don't integrate it, then you're not going to be happy. Things are not going to go this way. So right now, this direction that a lot of people are going, this technocratic people are going, and just like investing AI, that is a dead end branch, by the way. Okay, this is not the way we're going to go forward. Is going to be a dead end. So all the investment there, I don't care if it's $1 trillion. It is a gambling that is not going to work out. You see? Now, the beginning of where the money is supposed to go there right now, where what will work out, because by the way, like that is the sort of like a dead end reality. You understand? It is basically none of us would exist if that becomes successful. So I'm not casting my vote on that. I don't predict that. I predict where biology and technology have integrated, and we have biological, aspect of the technology interacting with us to keep that intelligence and that moral that is not deterministically derived, because the deterministically derived moral could be, like, well, this makes sense that I have to sacrifice 10 people to save one, but without that intelligence that you can, sacrifice one, sorry, that traditional thing, sacrifice one person to save 10. But there might be an option where you don't need to do anything, but that requires intelligence and not deterministic calculation. And that is what I'm trying to say. And so that has to be part of the technology. Like right now, my laptop and I are sort of like together as one unit. And so there's a biology and technology working together. You don't want to let that shit go. You want, if you make a robot and you want it to be autonomous, you better have some neuronal cells there, interacting. First of all, there's going to be less power that is necessary. Okay, so that's like the whole idea of building these data centers and asking for more and more power and nuclear reactors and all that stuff. It's not necessary. You don't need that much power. You need like maybe the 10th of that power if you employ biology. It runs on sugar, basically. So and by the way, what I'm saying here, like if you are a clever person, and hopefully you are, because look, I'm not like, you may ask the question, is like, why do you have like 50 into 100 views per video? It's like, why aren't you, look, this is my approach. I said, I do what I do without any intent of manipulating the algorithm or you, and I want to see what happens in this particular case. My responsibility as a human being, just post, interact, and do nothing. Zero manipulation. Because I could manipulate the because that's how it's supposed to work. Okay, if you post something that is of value and people gain value out of that, then that's supposed to be rewarded. Okay, and so if I ever going to have more than 1,000 views or 10,000, it's not because I fucking baiting everybody, clickbaiting everybody on TikTok and having this low quality consciousness, as my followers, just to get that number. And see, I don't care about that. I want the real people, real viewers that are intelligent, you see, and so on and so on. So I may post more, but I will keep the same approach. I won't be answering to the algorithm. Algorithm must be answering to me. So this is like my vote, my take on the reality. And I want to have more, clients. Yeah, I want to have one more sessions. I want to have, perhaps I don't need that many, but like I would prefer a little bit more viewership. Yeah, but I'm not gonna go the algorithm way. I'm not gonna put some, black, red, white type of thumbnails with a retarded face on top of it, right? Like, I'm not gonna do that. And so I'm just gonna do what is necessary, what they claim is necessary. And what they claim is necessary is you post a high quality content that is shareable, and people interact with the video, and basically saying high quality will win. Of course, that's not what happens. And this basically what I'm doing is a bit of an experiment. But I do hope that that Web 3.0 idea will keep these corporations responsible and make sure that the algorithm is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing and not just feeding the beast. Look, there's nothing wrong making money. If you build an application, like if a community can build an application and maintain it and to serve the community, and that's what it's necessary. It's just that the people need to really freaking stand for it. You see what I'm trying to say? Like they have to say, encourage other people to use these Web 3.0 apps and stuff like that. People have to do this. Government's not going to do this. But, well, government should be doing this. I mentioned this before. They should create that Web 3.0 as a digital human right that is there. And then the corporation can say, okay, well, our tool is, can do something more than that. It has to be better. But if you say, like, well, our tool has ads, and you say, okay, that's not better, Or like, oh, our tool can really manipulate you really well and make you consume the content that you never really intended, but you just put you in a trance to sleep and program you to want something, to seek something that you never intended, and then you're going to have to go and buy it and, play that hamster in the wheel game. Well, no, thank you. This does not sound better, right? You see what I'm getting at? But if corporation says, okay, we're gonna go out of business because these Web 3.0 is just completely replacing us, and they're better. So what are we gonna do to make things better here? Now, then you will find that the algorithm is gonna have to be of service to the human intelligence. So that's my take. Now, if it is the case, if indeed mind is mechanical, and all the evidence that we have, it is the case, then when people say like everything is mind, and they see everything as mind as this mechanical kind of way, and they just, then some people who are supposed to be part of the mind, and they are a little bit more aware and they're more connected with the higher mind, and some souls are, then they say, hey, we have to follow this will of God, the script of God. It's going to happen anyway. So why don't we just put more energy there and just make that happen? Because it is crazy. Like, I don't know if you saw this Professor Jean, I don't know how he pronounced correctly, but he still is making these videos but the final message was redemption through sin. Like, that is pretty much the final message based on all the observations that he made. And this idea he is onto something very legit, as like the whole reality functions. Because, and that is what I really want to talk about, because consciousness, when you have every player knowing how to play the game, and when the challenges arise, the challenges being accepted properly and being like dealt with through calibration of consciousness, and then because the challenges kind of show you what you really want, because like, oh, I didn't know I want that, like I'm super triggered about this, so it means I want the opposite, and so you calibrate it and you continue fulfilling your soul desires. That is the purpose of the video game and this reality, okay? The whole, Kali Yuga, what does it mean? Dvapara Yuga, what does it mean? Which, by the way, right now we're in a Kali Yuga on a Maha Yuga scale, and then in a Dvapara Yuga on a smaller scale, 24,000 cycle is 25,000 cycle is the Dvapara Yuga. So 50-50. And Kali Yuga is like 75-25, more or less, darkness and light that is naturally available in the system. Now, what does that mean? That means that there's like a lot of unknown there, the darkness, that once you go into it, the clarity arises, but you get your sort of like ass handed to you first time you enter the darkness, and the challenge comes up. You encounter the monster that in the dark. Now you deal with that monster through the calibration, and from that monster you get the gem, and from that gem you get to buy something that your soul desires, right? And then you continue playing this game. This is how you play the game of life correctly. This video game settings are basically hard on the alchemical right now, and medium on the magical. The mind layer is medium, and the soul layer is hard. These are the settings of the game. You cannot change them. But if you play well, they are not the problem. You understand? They're just the catalyst for you to produce art and beauty and science and all these different things. They are not the problem. You don't have to go into the evil to be in this particular world, this system, and handle the challenges. You understand? It's not a utopia where everybody's kind of sitting on the ass and doing nothing because there's no stimulus anymore. No. It's Kali Yuga on that big scale, Dvapara Yuga on this scale. There's going to be movement. You're going to have to go on adventure. You're going to have to play the game. You came here to play the game. And you better connect with that part of you that is or was or is in agreement with playing this game as the most entertaining thing that you can do in the cosmos. Okay? Saying all that, that Kali Yuga, that darkness, is what you would normally call free will. It is a will to do something outside of normality of the will, the innocent will, right? Don't go into the darkness. Well, but you have a free will. You're usually like, well, I want to see. And you go into the darkness. And then, sure enough, you can get caught in that darkness. And eventually you're going to have to. But if you go into the darkness ready, by the way, and you go into a little bit of darkness and deal with that a little bit like that, then go a little bit more, then that's you playing it correctly. And that's pretty much my advice to everybody right now at this moment. Because, by the way, like, this game is always going on in the real-time moment. There's no type of like, this is why like when people read Bible in a historical sense, or when they apply this linear type of mindset on this, it does not work, because it is happening right now. The rebirth, the crucifixion, all of these different events is happening right now in your life. It's not yes, there is the mind creates the story. It's not like intrinsically exists, but mind creates the story, and there are dates and everything, and then the game is valid. But on a soul level, it's the exact same type of process happening in the real time all the time. There's a part of you, the smaller scale, like to some entity that I thought that was kind of trying to get its way, dying because it's no longer needed. Poof, dying. There's a new something that's being reborn, and now it's see what I'm trying to say, like, you are not aiming for that anything. You realize, oh my God, that's not important. That was my ego tantrum, and that's what my soul desires. And so you can use that manure to grow flowers, and it happening in real time. So anyway, I just wanted to say that it's not the thing that yes, the time fractals are real and the dates are real, but it is not about waiting for this apocalypse or anything like that. But apocalypse, this deluge is happening within your consciousness now, right now. There's not going to be the end of the world. You see what I'm trying to say? There's going to be the end of the line for so anyway, let me go into this right now. So if you do not play the game right, then it does end up in the apocalypse, right? But it's your aperture, you that listening to me, your aperture of reality is will determine in what reality you live. Just you, nobody else, just you. It will determine in what kind of reality you live. But not by default, not in this way that like, hey, just relax, you're God anyway. No, it does not happen this way. It happens through calibration. You must play the game. It does not happen by default. If you just think that you don't need to do anything, calibrate energy, and just coast, and everything's just going to be the way it's going to be, it's not. You are complicit to evil if you do not calibrate your consciousness. Okay? Because if you don't calibrate your consciousness, you're going to be engaged in a lot of things. Unless you go into the apathy, you're going to be annoyed at things. You're going to fuel these things by hate. By the way, that's how the one of the ways of that get energy, that will, that entity, that thought that is trying to get somewhere and accomplish something as a program gets energy from hate too. So if you are hating somebody, they are receiving the energy. The entity receives the energy, which is just a thought and an intent that is haywire. And let me tell you, there's so many disgusting ideas and thoughts in that realm of thought that need to be alchemized, right? So light is not intrinsically within you by default. Light, this idea that people are trying to sell you, they're like, hey, you're perfect as you are, kind of thing, and all that stuff. No, you're playing a game, very important game. The stakes are very high because you came here to play the game and say, I want to be individual. I come from unity, but I do not have singularity. Through duality, I'm going to play this game. That's going to trigger me, and it's going to catalyze me, and it's going to show me all of these different quote-unquote wounds or these fragmented distortions that I will be in a position to alchemize and put it back into this crystal. That is a correction for all of the distortion that exists in the reality, right? And so the formation of that crystal is that game. That crystal, that singularity, now has all the capacities of the entire cosmos within one individual. Okay, that's the singularity. So that's the difference between people just float, go with the flow, and just keep on patting themselves on the back, and who people are playing this game in this direct way that is necessary to play. So, but there's some things that happen in some of these servers, and this is what happened on Earth. It got derailed, and that happened might be like 2,000 years ago or something like that. It got derailed, meaning that there were not enough players or just too many noobs on the server, and it wasn't being played right. And so a lot of these people, souls, they call it fallen angels or whatever, right? Which is just to say that the person has chosen like this dark path, or said, well, I'm going to get what I really want to get without the calibration of consciousness, through use of my mind or my body, through force or my imagination. I'm just going to use purely magic and purely willpower force to get what I want. It's I don't need this calibration and derive the energy from source. I can basically replace it with pleasure. It works. I can get whatever the fuck I want. You see what I'm trying to say? And I'll survive as an ego, as a separate self. Whereas if you calibrate the consciousness, you survive as a separate self, but you also in that unified energy. That is true immortality. The vampires are not immortal. Vampires are killed by the real light. However, when the system is being sort of infested by these vampires, and by the way, like this is what the Professor Jing, by the way, is saying, is that they want to fulfill the quote unquote the will of God, which is kind of evil, right? And the way they function is their bonding is sexual, because that energy has to be derived from somewhere, so they bond through sexuality, not through the heart calibration and connection. They don't have heart connection, but they have that body and mind connection, and so they essentially are as completely asleep, because they're completely just running that will that is automated. So these souls are completely fallen asleep, and they are having a dream that they are evil person and having an incest with the family, because that's the way they bond, and that's the way the entities survive, is through getting the energy through that taboo breaking thing. I've talked about this before. I think you get the point, where there's a movement of consciousness where the pleasure sort of invades your heart, your soul, and tries to replace it. However, that light is in reality very weak, but there's no stronger light. That light will work, because the mind will say, okay, what is the highest coherent energy here I have about this idea? Oh, this, then I use this, because mind is still blind. It's just like, give me the energy and what you want it to be created, and mind will do it. Now, they're trying to give the same fucking energy. However, if you're calibrating the energy, you receive much, much stronger light than they can create through that limited, sexual abomination approach. And this stops working. This is why their will no longer works. But they had the run. They made billions of dollars. I don't know what they're going to do with this billions of dollars, because that just didn't really improve the quality of life at all. Because now they have all these other problems of, you see what I'm trying to say, you cannot socialize normally with people, because, you see what I'm trying to say, there's that distance between people and you, and you see what I'm trying to say. Anyway, without bantering too much about this, let's just look at this thing. So what happened? There's a certain threshold that's when it's reached, when too many souls are moving in this regressive way, okay, it cannot be stopped anymore. Once that threshold is reached, now it's going to spiral all the way to the end of it. Okay? Does that make sense? There's a threshold point. As soon as the evil crosses that threshold point, that's it. A normal approach to life as you always did is not going to work, because there's too much gravity now towards the evil. It triggers something else. And so this is what they say about redemption through sin. They say that, hey, we're going to create the reality is so Babylonian, so of harmony, that will trigger the coming of God, right? So basically, we're going to bring the light, the real light, by doing evil. That's essentially what Professor Jing is saying, that you're going to bring the light through doing evil. And that happens in the simulations where that just gets out of control. we're living in a world where that happened, where that shit got out of control. Now we cannot go back in just through normal goody goody ways anymore. Now the spiritual war is taking place because it went so far that other mechanisms the consciousness starts creating to correct for it. Now it's gonna have to it's gonna have now the trigger of that is that it brings the pressure to bring even bigger light in this reality, or even higher wisdom that normally would not exist, but it would only exist if you go off the charts and create too much evil, and then only this quality of energy comes into the world. This type of energy only then comes into the world as a correcting mechanisms. It's just almost like the net runners or the blade runners. Maybe blade runners is not a good, but the net runners from Cyberpunk, it's a little bit like that. Okay, the server gone too dark, send in the net runners, and so all these evil doers are basically asking for it, almost like wanting for that energy to come in. But it's crazy how it is, like, but you can see that it is not a um, it is a story, it is a mythology. I still think that some games do have that no safety where that shit can go out of control, and in those realities the fixing crew and the cleanup crew will gonna have to come in. So some games are not only there's a high difficulty, but it just becomes impossible without some energy that had never been seen before to come in and correct that level of corruption. And so that's what's happening on here. Excuse me. That's what's happening on Earth in here. It's not based on everything I said, it is not a vanilla server. It is heavily modified. It is there's a lot of mods in here. Free will has been abused because free will is like to do whatever you want. You go and just like, oh, try this, try that. There's a challenge, there's a thing, you deal with it, and so you grow like that. But it was abused. The free will was abused because normally free will functions like that. Hey, you're free to do something like that, right? That's not going to be that's not going to be something that is secure. It's going to be unsafe. You're going to have to go into unknown, right? But then you can find something new that hasn't been before, and you meet that challenge, overcome it, and there's something new. And that's in this normal gameplay, right? But this game, the principle is still the same, but it's not normal anymore. The scale, the intensity is not normal anymore. And this is why I don't have a problem with evil, so to speak, because I know and I'm learning how to handle it, and learning the real nature of it, and the absence of intelligence, the absence of any lights being home, I used to have like a lot of that animosity and kind of anger and hate towards that, but I've alchemized all that, and that allowed me to see it as a, oh shit, these are just programs. Like, they're very fucking convincing. There's this guy talking on stage like he knows what he's saying, and just saying to all these people how they can become superhuman because all they have to do is just like control their imagination and raise their kundalini. And so there must be somebody who knows what they're doing. Nah, completely absent of consciousness. The only thing that they can muster up as close as to coherence in a backwards ass way is through by doing these methods, by trying to raise that type of energy. Um, and They don't know what they're doing. They have no fucking idea. They're not real. Because otherwise they would not do this. Like, you look at this like, what? Why would they distract all these people? Why would they lie to all these people? Why would they put them on the wrong end of solution? Only is they would be these um they sent by the devil, but they in the sheep clothing. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And when you start seeing this, you'll say, well, this is like the whole movement of consciousness that is going that way. Then start realizing, okay, that movement of consciousness is keep creating that separation, this necromantic approach. But it's not a problem. It's not a problem because every time they create that separation through, their way, you get to alchemize that energy, and you get to build up that um, singularity, bringing yourself closer to singularity. So they're catalyzing you, they're triggering you and catalyzing you for this reason. And I talked about like these rituals that they're doing and everything, and I said like we'll have to stop them. I'm not sure that that is necessary. I think that yes, what's illegal, I think there's some of it has to happen. There's some stoppage externally has to happen, as just because some people do it out of habit, and so you got to correct that because there's no intent left anymore, but it's just automated movement that needs to be stopped. But there's no one's gonna resist that much. People just gonna get arrested for doing some crazy ass shit or some stupid ass ritual, and that's it. Some of it has to happen, but cleanup, right? It's just a cleanup. It's not to fight against it, because the fight has been done internally through the alchemy. That's why when they do these rituals, the separation happens. You get to feel it. You get to calibrate it, alchemize it. You receive that bliss energy, and that bliss energy is more powerful than that false light energy. And you get to cast the vote what's going to happen. But when I say you, yeah, now you're not going to move from egotistical point of view. You're going to move from the soul point of view, which is of course like what you want is you want like a good culture, good art, having fun, approaching challenges correctly, not ignoring, not saying that like, well, I don't want any kind of challenges. No, but approaching challenges correctly in the way that you can handle it. If you challenge a little bit too much, like you got friends who can help you out with that challenge, so you do it together. Like, you want to enjoy this video game, right? And these challenges are there, but they're kind of cute. They're cute challenges. They're little ones. They're fun to overcome them. But none of these, these big ones, existential ones, where it just undermines everything. So from unity to duality to singularity. And apparently that singularity um, could be accomplished through playing this game correctly over and over again, or logging in on the server where the shit is so out of whack and having accelerated um, you know graduation on a server where there's a lot of darkness being pushed. And I think that's what's happening right now. This is just like an accelerated um, graduation process that is available right now on this earth. And of course, it's mutual. It's not like you graduate and you just leave it all fucked up. No, your graduation will leave the imprint. The next generation is not going to be. You see what I'm trying to say? If you truly graduate, it's not going to be like that. So what else I can say? Everything's all right, I guess. And that's why I want to have like one-on-one sessions and teach the people to calibrate their consciousness. Because I don't need a lot. Like, I know that my desire is not to just make money out of this, because I do enjoy calibrating consciousness, because that refreshes my energy. Like, I get to show the people of how to do this, how to play the game correctly. And so it's amazing. So I always gonna do one-on-one like that. And whatever I need to do to get people lined up to do these sessions, I'll do. But I'm not gonna make this into just like a will of God, and we have to save the planet and all that stuff. No, you don't externally try to save the planet. By the way, all these people who are believing to save the planet, like, and creating this greater Israel project, they also trying to save the planet by killing people. You see, like, how by committing evil they want to they want to do good, but somehow down the line they're kind of right, because that does trigger a backlash and correction on the system, and more light is being brought into the system. Now, of course, they all don't get to reap those rewards, and so in a way, I mean, you may not like what I say here, but I had this thought before, and it's just a thought, but it appears to be that the mechanism of consciousness might be so, that all these people who are fallen angels and whatnot, and it's not like I've never quote unquote fallen. Again, I'm talking about like it happens in real time. You can have a moment where you've fallen, and then you have to back up, climb yourself out of it. But then in a collective, that's also going on. So all these people who pneumatic souls, and then they go on a dark path and they become these, they fall asleep and they don't know what they're doing anymore, but they are definitely doing something very calculated, they put energy very efficiently to create the illusion of the will of God, right? Like they do believe that they're creating the will of God, but it's really a devil's will to trigger the coming of God. So they're just basically taunting God. And apparently the evil must cross a certain threshold for that to happen, where just divine intervention is. But then what happens to that soul who went dark? I hear that they have to work their karma out later, and they have a lot of help to work that out, but they just sort of like they play the villain. They go through a lot of stress on their system, because to come out from that darkness is very difficult. again, people say that they get a lot of help after they die, but they die here as evil. So I know you may not want to hear this, but like they actually the ones who make a higher sacrifice because um well, yeah, they do get to enjoy enjoy the evil pleasures of life, but then they have to go through hell um, with a lot of help to rehabilitate back into normal uh, state of being. But the souls who are coming here and using that contrast for the alchemy, they actually get to be immortal. And these vampires end up just helping these souls to become immortal, but not becoming immortal themselves. Do they not? Well, what happens? Don't they need to calibrate and alchemize the energy even after death? And if they're doing this alchemical work that is not within a body, but then again, they say that they other people come in and help, and because other souls come in and help, because other souls come in and help, that's not individual anymore. It's just being brought back into um, the coherence that is shared, but not individual. Fuck. So there you go. So that's what happens when you play a villain. You get to have enjoy all these pleasures of life. You get to not to have the moral compass or give a shit about anything. And so that's the joy of being a villain. You enjoy the lifetime, which was just like a dream of you being a bad guy and whatnot. And but you don't get to be immortal. But the hero, the one that is fighting the villain, gets to be immortal. And then again, I'm not saying this as a linear. I'm talking about it happening in your life. There's a part of you that dies, the ego part of you that dies, but you do need to go into the dark to trigger that. You see, and I've had things in my life that triggered very deeply. Until that, I was not aware that that even existed. But that trigger, that catalyst, brought up is like, look, there's much deeper thing there that needs to be sort of calibrated, which before I was not even aware of. And just by me engaging in that type of fallen way, I've discovered the deeper light within myself. So it's not that I was not in a villain mode. On some things in my life, I was in that villain mode, But some people are just more globally villain, and they will never be a hero. But in my life, it was just like I played the villain, then what happened? Why did I stop wanting? I don't know. I backed out in a way where there's something about me which is like, okay, you went into enough darkness. Let's reel back in. I don't know. So my villain, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that my villain career was very short-lived. And but I also have to say that, like I said, that there's some of it that pleasure. Look, the ultimate like power where you can manifest something, and I'm talking about the real manifestation right now. I'm not talking about just going imagination and I'm talking about changing the entire coherence of the mind, and the most powerful one is when you have those all of those energies, all of these rewards. You collect the joy points, and then you enjoy. What does the enjoyment means? You take the joy, which is just pure bliss joy, and then you put into something that you want more of, and you enjoy, and you imbue that idea, that thought, that concept with joy, and that's how you cast a very strong vote. Then on the pleasure side, you also have, but obviously you don't cross the line, you go there of how far you can go on the pleasure, because then you can have that bliss, awe. When you enjoy something so deeply, you get that awe and ecstasy too. Then your manifestation is unstoppable. Ecstasy has very strong manifestation capacity, but it has a limit. That's why all these people who do all these exercises and create these abominable connections with each other, for example, like, again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, I'm recognizing that that's how it is, which is like, well, it would be it's kind of hard to do a taboo thing, right? So you do that taboo thing, and then that's what I'm trying to say, and that creates the ecstasy feeling, and then now you get that limited type of luck that's happening within your life because you've done that. So it's just like this is how like all these dark people make all this money, how they have like all things in their favor. But again, like I said, it is limited because it comes from the mind. Now when it's unlimited energy comes through and imposes its will on the reality, and the ecstasy at the same time, not crossing the line, not crossing the boundaries, and deriving the ecstasy from non-abominable fruits of labor kind of thing. Now the vote is so strong that you have all of these energies now around that process of creation, and that is not stoppable anymore. People listening to me may get a sort of an idea that a lot of things that I'm saying is sort of solipsism perspective. It is not solipsism perspective. It is a part of it. I'm talking from the paradoxical perspective. I'm not talking about this there is no you, or there is you and you have to just like the do as thy please, or whatever that that thing. I'm not taking any of these quote unquote sides. And so that in betweenness, that liminality, is what I'm all about. I understand that there is a center of me, and I understand that there is unity with everything else. And I'm cultivating that thing in between me and everything else. You see? And that centeredness is a type of truth, that unity is a type of love. When there is no centeredness, when there's no truth, boom, everything just becomes flat and boring and, and flat, dead, numb. You have to bring that centeredness, you got to bring that fire there. And in between that fire and that water, you'll find something that is functional, paradoxical, and nobody, and I mean nobody that functions in the mind could touch it. No matter how much they want it, no matter who can try to copy this thing, to copy this energy, you cannot do it. You must go through the eye of a needle. You must become a paradoxical being, something that should not supposed to exist, like neutron star. Did you know that neutron star has the most coldest and hottest temperatures in the universe in one? And also, did you know that neutron star is actually a type of explosion through implosion first? There's an implosion that happens, and extra that explosion from the implosion, there's that gamma ray that goes right? Like, so this is the closest paradoxical physical object that can point to you of how consciousness functions. And where is it? It's usually at the center of the galaxy. It's the eye, the true eye. And then the matter, the mind is doing its thing. It's just stimulus response. But that stimulus response is not blind, because there's a neutron star affecting everything and tweaking everything according to intent of the eye, the true eye. And if people are, for example, are, cannot make anything out of you, right? Like they don't know what category to put. They're I mean, some people might be scared of me because it's because of the paradox that I am. But others are super attracted to this. They seem to be like, hey, I want into this thing, like I want to fall through the cracks into this liminal space, because I feel like that's where my home is, and I want to keep on calibrating my consciousness to remain there, online, and play this game. Remain that neutrality. That's what it's called, neutron star, and play the duality. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'll post the video that I recorded, but I'll wait for a little bit. But this is good enough for today. How unity goes into duality in order to find singularity, and that's how souls graduate. So a lot of, in that video I'm talking about why this psychosis is happening, because a lot of people don't get their way. Their ego tantrums don't get what they want anymore. That's going to be more and more. So the tantrums is something that you may see happening like a lot. You may see the meltdowns even in the people who are supposed to be your saviors. People who just keep on relying on this motion, and it's no. That, yes, villains get to have a head start. Yeah, sure, they get to have a head start, but they don't get to enjoy the paradise. they just get to be who they want to be in this Babylonian era. But they don't get to enjoy the paradise. Like when the technology and AI is going to be integrated with biology, they're not gonna see how awesome this fucking life is. I mean, unless they really, but I don't know. I know how difficult it is to. But then again, yes, they may not have singularity, but I don't know. Like they may not, like because look, this the most evil people in the world are are not looked at as such. They sometimes some of them they have like a lot of support. Oh yeah, sure, let's trillion of dollars into this one thing. Like, mm, all right, guys, that's enough for today. Hopefully it makes sense. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.